In this mini lecture, I will talk to you about how to organize your persuasive speech. When we speak to persuade, we are attempting to create, reinforce, or change the attitudes, beliefs, values, or behaviors of the listener. In the informative speech, you are the teacher. In the persuasive speech, you are the leader. Your central idea would start with, I want to convince, or I want to persuade my audience to, and then you would complete that sentence. For the focus of persuasion, we've focused on 3 different questions. Something could be a question of fact. It is either true or it is not true. For example, to persuade my audience that TV violence causes real-world violence. That would be a question of fact. A question of value is where something is either good or bad, right or wrong. To convince my audience that Pepsi is better than Coke. Or a question of policy, that some action should be taken. To persuade my audience that they should donate blood. So, how do we influence our audience? How you structure your persuasive speech or your speech organization is crucial to its level of effectiveness. Of course, you do need to know your audience, and this is crucial so that you can organize your speech in an effective way. And remember, when wanting to influence your audience, generally change works best in small amounts over a long period of time. When we look at some issues, we're not going to completely change the opinion of our audience, but perhaps we can consider them to get them to think about it in a way that they didn't before. And as the speaker, you must make the audience understand the significance of the problem through the use of credible information, emotional appeals, and your own credibility. You want to make the audience understand that there is a problem, and then you'll be proposing a solution. So let's take a look at how you're going to organize your persuasive speech. Although there are various different strategies that you can use to organize a persuasive speech, the only strategy that we'll be using is a problem-solution organization pattern. In a problem-solution speech, you will explain the problem, and you're going to give a detailed plan then about your solution and how that solution will reduce or eliminate the problem. So again, the first step is to describe the problem. You must establish that a problem exists, and you must convince the audience that the problem needs some solving in some way. Once you've established that there is a problem, you're going to explain the solution and argue that your solution is the best solution. As part of this, you would also want to refute any objections. With any plan, we all know that there are positives and negatives in anything, and so if there are limitations to your strategy, you would want to address those within your strategy. So, organizing the speech. For this persuasive speech, you will use only a problem-solution pattern of organization. Right now I'm going to focus just on how you would organize the body of the speech. With this, you're going to have 2 main points. The first main point is going to be the problem, where you will then, of course, have a number of subpoints explaining the problem. You must demonstrate to us that a problem does exist. The second main point is going to be your proposed solution. So let's first take a look at the problem. In the problem, you need to develop it in such a way to make it real to us on both an intellectual and an emotional level. So what does that mean? Well, you need to give us enough facts and information that we understand that there is a problem, and certainly any emotional appeals would help with that. So you want to engage both our heads and our hearts. And then you would have the appropriately numbered subpoints to develop the problem in 2 ways. So the ways that we can develop and establish there's a problem is qualitatively. This is more of the emotional appeal. Why should I care? How does this affect me? How severe is this problem? And then quantitatively, this is where you would use more of the intellectual appeals. How big is the problem? How widespread is the problem? What kind of information do you have that you can back up the fact that you're establishing that a problem even exists? Again, you're going to appeal to us on an intellectual level by using facts and statistics, as well as on an emotional level. And for this, it's often good to use stories or narratives. So you've established that there is a problem. That's the first step. Next thing you need to do is to offer a solution. This is the part of the speech where you advocate for the audience to take some action or for there to be a change in law or policy. One, you would identify the plan. What is your specific plan? Then you need to provide evidence that your plan will reduce or eliminate the problem. You could use expert testimony, study results, empirical examples or pilot programs, peer or personal testimony. And then you do want to address any residual problems or disadvantages with your proposed plan. By doing this, you are recognizing that, yes, I understand there are limitations, but this is still the best plan. Those 2 points, the problem and the solution, would comprise the body of your speech. Now we know that a speech needs an introduction and a conclusion. And the introduction and the conclusion will contain all the same parts as it did in the informative speech. In the introduction, you will still use an attention getter. You could use a story, startling statistics, examples, a dramatic quote. You would still need to begin the process of establishing audience relevance in your introduction. Why should this audience care about this topic? Why is this a problem? Your own credibility. How or why are you credible about this topic or this issue? Have you done research? Have you been personally affected? Why do you care about this topic? And you would want to, of course, preview. Briefly describe the problem you will be speaking about and your proposed solution. In the conclusion, we're going to have the same information. We're going to have a summary where you will review again and summarize the problem that you presented and your proposed solution. And you also want to, again, reiterate the specific action you want the audience to take or the policy change that you have proposed. And then we would need some memorable closer, some closing thought to encourage the audience to remember the speech. As always, you'll be using transition statements throughout the speech. It's going to be important for this speech that you link all the parts together. Using an internal summary and an internal preview between the main points and even within your subpoints will again be helpful to allow your audience to follow your speech.